Hello. So anyway, I'd like to start my first lecture, and this one is making your path to medical school. And again, as I've mentioned multiple times, this is introduction to health careers. Medical school is kind of our default meaning, but I mean that generically, just about any health field. This basic information applies. Most of this information applies. But again, we're kind of leaning on medical school as that is what most of you are considering when you enter this class and you consider medical sciences as an option at Western Illinois University. So just to kind of get started, there's no real such thing as a pre-med major. Most schools do not have a pre-med major. That doesn't mean you're not a pre-med. Pre-med just means before medical school. And a lot of students, they love to be called a pre-med because it kind of gives them a street cred. Like, look at me, I'm going to go to medical school. And it gives them that feeling of prestige because you're telling everybody you're going to be a medical doctor. But the reality is most people that go down the pre-med pathway do not go to medical school. Maybe about 40% actually, of those, only about 40% that actually apply will get accepted into medical school. And that's being generous. And those are students with good GPAs and so forth. But again, that's not to dismiss that. I want you to realize it is a great goal to try to get into medical school, physical therapy, nursing, pharmacy, veterinary medicine, all the different types of health fields. Whether you go on to an official program or maybe go to an EMT program, all that stuff is important. So it is a blessing that you're trying to do that. Just make sure you realize why you're doing it. So pre-med, as I said, is, while it might give you a feeling of a little bit of street clout, for the most part, it's no such thing as a major. You're either going to be a biology major or a variety of different majors. In fact, you don't even need to be a biology major with a chemistry minor, which is your typical pre-med studies to be successful to get to medical school. So just realize that. I'd love to keep you in the biology department though. And if you're in the biology department, you're probably in this class because you're a medical sciences option. You're still getting a biology degree, but your option is the medical sciences. And we have all sorts of different options, and all of them would get you into medical school, as well as just about any major, as long as you took the pre-med classes. So anyway, that leads me to the next point, the good news and the bad news. The good news is there's infinite number of roads that can take you to get you to medical school, all sorts of ways to get to medical school. You don't have to be a biology major. I hope you are, because I am a biology professor, but you will still need to take those pre-med classes. Some people go on to do something like being in the Army first or the military, and then they come back to school. So there's lots of ways to ultimately make it to medical school or some other type of professional school, as I mentioned. So there's no absolute checklist or roadmap that you will guarantee you that you'll get there. In fact, sometimes it's better to go off that path and try to be an individual first. If you're just a cookie cutter pre-med, I took my classes, I pretended to be interested in all these different clubs, and I just did the volunteer work just to look good, it's going to come out. You really need to be who you are. So you need to create your own map. And that's what's important for me to emphasize. Create your own map, find the classes that you like, take your pre-med classes, find the volunteer work and the research work that you really care about to stand out. Now, there's a variety of different healthcare professions. You don't need to go into medical school to have a good career. In fact, many fields are starting to take on some of the roles of being a general practitioner. For example, a nurse practitioner does prescribes medicine and does the same kind of things that a general practitioner would do. Or a physician assistant will go on to prescribe medicine or help in surgery and so forth, or become a nurse anesthetist. There's lots of cool careers that pay very well. In addition to that, there's careers where you don't need a bachelor's degree to start working and making money. We can get an associate's degree or a certificate from a hospital. There's over 200 different careers, health careers that are great. And that's not even including public health jobs. Like I used to work in the St. Louis Public Health Department dealing with vector control. So I was out collecting mosquitoes and then helping as part of a team to figure out what viruses were located in the mosquitoes. So again, there's all sorts of great health careers, and then there's public health careers, and then there's kind of an educational variations of health related careers, whether you might be some type of health teacher or health counselor. So you don't have to follow the dogma of I got to go into medicine to be a healthcare professional. So just looking at this list, you know, an athletic trainer is a type of healthcare expert. An audiologist, biomedical engineer would be someone trying to help develop maybe a new valve for a heart. We have clinical lab scientists that work in the back room and figure out the different tests that the physician needs to help diagnose a problem. All of us that go to dentists love our dental hygienist. I mean, we love having nice, clean teeth. That's probably as important as seeing the dentist is. Exercise physiologists. We have ethicists that might help with making sure that healthcare is advocated properly for the patient. We have obviously medical illustrators. If you have an art background, you have ophthalmologists and occupational therapists and occupational therapy assistant. The occupational therapist is usually a person with a master's degree. I think there might be some doctorate of occupational therapy being developed. But we also have occupational therapy assistants where you can go to a 2-year school and be able to help. And this is where you help build prosthetics and teach people how to do fine motor control. Again, think about what you want your lifestyle to be. You know, if you're an optometrist, you might have a very good lifestyle where you'll have decent money. You're helping people immediately by giving them glasses, for instance. Or you might be able to look at the back of the eye and you can actually tell somebody's diabetic and send them off to get proper treatment. You might become a podiatrist, which is a foot doctor. That's also a doctorate degree, and have your own business helping deal with and do little foot surgeries and things that are needed. So there's 4-year degrees, 6-year degrees, 2-year degrees, all these different types of programs that'll help you to get a job in medicine. It might not hurt, in fact, to go get a 2-year degree so that you are working in a healthcare environment, and then progress and take more classes to get your bachelor's and then try to go to medical school. You'll be a better doctor because you've had that experience. So let's explore health careers, for instance. So you go to www.explorehealthcareers.org and we have a homework assignment that's based on this. So I click on it and you can see right away that we have options to help you to determine what you want to do. Is there a certain health career that's right for you? Do you like being a team player? Do you like working on your own, for instance? So I want you to take some time to explore this website. For instance, this one's really good for figuring out, you know, if I want to spend 4 years in school and I'm hoping I make $60,000, $70,000 a year, this will give you different careers that you can consider, whether it be nurse informatists, pathology assistant, pharmaceutical scientists, Some of that I would think you probably need a PhD. This may be a little bit off to make these kind of salaries. But let's say you wanted a 2-year degree. Is there 70,000 a year jobs available? And it says there isn't. So let's break this down to maybe a 50 or 40,000 a year and see what comes up. And then we find out, oh, being a dental hygienist makes 55,000. That is actually not a bad salary after 2 years of school. Obviously, it's a lot of work with those and fine motor skills. You might not want to do that, but these are all decent paying jobs without necessarily needing a 4-year degree. In fact, there's a lot of people with bachelor's degrees that would love to make this kind of salaries. So don't poo-poo the opportunity to consider a 2-year degree or go to a hospital where the training's available. So I want you to take some time to explore this. Being a radiation technologist gets you 62,000 a year, physical therapy assistant 45,000. So these are all good careers with only requiring 2 years of school. Let's say you get 8 years of school, what can we expect? And then it starts telling you about being a physician or athletic trainer, environmental specialist. So I want you to take some time to explore the different health career fields that are available to you. As you can see, there's a lot. So I think this website's really helpful, and this will go well with the job that you're interested in. So let's go down to the next page. So here's more from our health careers page that you'll be able to see. You'll see things like, what's it like to be a respiratory therapist? What other allied health professions are there? These are fields that are associated but not necessarily in medicine directly. So this will be your physical therapist, speech pathologist, and so forth. So what I want you to get from this is, from this class, if you haven't already done this, is you must research a lot on your own. Do not expect everything to come from college or university or your professors. Ultimately, you are responsible for making it happen for you. So take the time to research, go on the internet, go on to YouTube, learn about different careers, talk to healthcare professionals. Those are the people that have that initiative that are going to succeed. It's those that are passive that will end up not being successful. So take the time to explore this website and explore ones that you can find on your own. Here's some more from that. Tells you what it's like to be a dentist or work in forensic sciences or be a pharmacist, podiatric medicine. So I want you to explore. What's it like to be an anesthesiologist assistant? Makes 110,000 a year. That's really good money. I'd be happy with that kind of money. So there are two different types of medical degrees. I don't know if you realize this, but most people think when they think of medicine, it's only MD. If you're going to be a doctor, it's a medical doctor. Well, first of all, I've already explained there's lots of different types of doctors, whether they be doctors of philosophy like myself, who have a PhD and do science research and profess, be a teacher. But MDs are doctors of medicine, and they're allopathic. So 70% of the doctors in the United States are MDs. And then roughly around 7 to 10% of the doctors in the United States are osteopathic medicine. Now realize osteopathic medicine has the same basic medical license or ability to practice in the United States. They work in the same hospitals. Chances are you might have had a DO, doctor of osteopath, that was prescribing medicine as your family doctor and you didn't know it. So a lot of doctors of osteopath just call themselves doctors, and you will know the difference. How is it different than being a medical doctor, a doctor of osteopath? Well, a doctor of osteopath tends to have a more holistic approach. At least that's what they argue. They have a more holistic approach, And they do some adjustments, kind of like a chiropractor. If you don't know what chiropractic does, chiropractors adjust your back, and you can hear the pops and stuff like that. Well, the doctor of osteopath learns a little bit of that, and then most of their time is spent doing allopathic-like medicine. So at the end of the day, they can do surgery or psychiatry or be your family practitioner. Most people that do go into doctor of osteopath tend to be more family practice, primary care type physicians. Specialties do still exist, though, as a DO, but they tend to do more general medicine, general practice medicine. And it's partly due to maybe them being a little less competitive for residencies than MDs. That's part of it. It is more difficult on average to get into medical school. I think that doctor of osteopathy tend to look past the numbers a little bit more and look at the whole person. And I think they tend to be a little bit more generous on your GPAs and your MCATs as a result of looking at the whole person. But in generally speaking, it's less competitive to go to DO school than it is to go to MD school. I would be very happy to be a DO or an MD. I would not dismiss going into DO, but don't just necessarily look at it as a fallback. If you decide you want to go to DO school, make sure it's because you want to go. Because they're going to weed you out if you just wanted to go to MD school and couldn't get accepted. They're not going to be that impressed with you. They want to know that you came there because you believe in their holistic approach. Anyway, you can learn about both of them because both of them are recognized by the American Medical Association. Those are the people that have the legal power in the United States on who gets to be a physician and who doesn't. And so if you look at schools of osteopathy, you'll see that they're located throughout the country, and there's little dots from where they're found. So there's quite a number of schools of osteopathy. There's one relatively close to us over here in Kirksville. And then there's also one over here in Kansas City, and then there's one up in Chicago. So these are good things to explore. So again, explore it. Look up what it means to be a osteopathic doctor, DO. If you've never heard about it, you really need to take some time to learn about it because this is some field that you need to consider. Now, if you don't get accepted into medical school, MD school, allopathic medicine, and you don't get accepted into osteopathic medicine, the third option is to consider a Caribbean school. I would be very careful selecting your Caribbean school. There's only a few of them that I would consider worthy of your time if you want to practice medicine in the United States. The other thing to consider if you don't get into medical school right away is get a master's in biology or some other field that you care about and improve your grades and get some more volunteer work. Now, I know that this lecture is kind of geared more towards medical doctors. We'll talk more. We'll have other experts in physical therapy and so forth talking soon too. But realize it is very competitive to get into medical school. It's very competitive to get into any school, anything that's worth and prestigious and so forth. So the competition is tremendous to get into medical school or physical therapy. Even nursing and other schools are competitive, particularly at the RN and nurse practitioner levels. So one does not simply get accepted into medical school. It's not just a matter of getting your bachelor's degree and then going on to medical school. So getting into medical school is hard, and 60% of the applicants don't get a single offer. That means only about 40% of qualified applicants get that chance. Most people won't apply if they don't have the GPA. What kind of GPA do you need? It better be in the mid threes. I would say 3.5 and better. You could probably still get in with a 3.3 with a good MCAT score. But if you're not happy, reapply. It is expensive to apply, a couple $1,000 by the time you apply to most of the medical schools you're interested in. So what's the journey? Well, you got to find your path. Make sure this is what you really want to do. And then if you choose medicine, you need to think about your GPA, your extracurriculars, being a part of a club, volunteer work, getting good MCAT scores, getting good letters of recommendation. Are you really going to ask a letter of recommendation from a professor you barely took the time to know? I hate writing the letters of recommendation for some student who took a class 3 years ago from me and never bothered to get to know me. And I'm supposed to just know them from Adam. They need to take the time to talk to the professor, especially once they get into that sophomore, junior, senior level years. So also got to realize you need to stand out. You can't just follow the cliches. Everybody says, I'm here to help patients. I like science. If you say why you want to be a physician, you need to demonstrate what makes you unique. So most medical schools look at the applicant. What's their MCAT scores? If you don't know what an MCAT is, this is the exam needed to get into medical school. It's the medical aptitude test. And this is a big screener for most medical schools. So you're going to want to spend months studying for, weeks or months studying for. Your GPA is critical. You'll want to have a good GPA. That is kind of probably the first big cutoff. If you don't have a good MCAT score or don't have a good GPA, you're immediately cut off. You got to have that reasonably strong score. Then they start to look at whether or not you're really got good letters of recommendation, truly committed to medicine, have strong leadership qualities and life experiences and clinical experiences and unique attributes. This is where you get to stand out as an individual. And you need to do research. And don't just come to somebody like me and say, hey, I want to do some research. I'm only going to be available 2 hours a week. You need to be motivated about doing your research. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time for everyone. So here's kind of what it looked like in 2015 for getting applicants and those that actually made it into medical school. So first-time applicants, there was over 38,000 first-time applicants, 52,000 total applicants, and only 20,000 people were accepted. So we're looking at, again, around a 39% acceptance rate. And this is, again, students that mostly applied were those that were qualified to apply. So you're dealing with a lot of 3.0s, 3.2s that probably could be a medical doctor, but weren't accepted. So what do you think is the average GPA for getting accepted? Is it 3.4, 3.5, 3.45, 3.6? Again, these are all really close. It probably doesn't make any difference. But the average GPA was a 3.55 cumulative, while it's a 3.45 in the natural sciences. So you got to have a high GPA. But don't be a grade grubbing student. Learn the subject matter. Don't just be nickeling and diming so you can get an A in my class or any other professor's class. Learn the topic, prove and earn that grade. It's really frustrating to have students that don't work hard and then come and say, hey, I want a little bit better grade. Don't be a grade grubber. Focus, work hard. Every class you're in, you should be spending multiple hours studying for that class every week, and then lots of hours before the actual exam. This is the MCAT scores. And so we have different areas that you get tested in. You got chemical, physical foundations of biological systems, critical analysis and reasoning skills, biological and biochemical foundations of living systems, and psychology, social, and biological foundations of behavior. So basically, you can see there's 4 major areas you have to study for. And you're going to have a MCAT score of around 500 plus to be competitive. The average scores you can see here are like 502, 506, and so forth. So this, again, it's not something you just walk in and take. Most of the time in MCAT, you've spent months preparing. You've taken it usually somewhere between your junior, senior year, or after your senior year, where you know you've had a chance to invest multiple months preparing for it. So you're looking at being in the 83rd percentile to be accepted into medical school. So that means that if you don't understand percentiles, that means you're better than 82% of the people that took the test. So that gives you a good idea how you need to prepare. So if you're down here in the 51st percentile, which might not be that big of a difference in education and smarts, but you ain't going to get accepted. So it's brutal. So you want to be in the top 23, 24% if possible. Most people that get accepted in medical school are around the age of 25. It is more difficult to get accepted in medical school the older you get. Except one school that they do take a little bit more time in thinking about you as the whole person is, again, Doctor of Osteopathy. They will accept older students. That doesn't mean you have to be 25 and you don't get accepted. If you don't make it and you get in when you're 28, that you'll still make it. You just got to have those qualities that they're looking for. International students have a much more difficult time getting accepted into an American medical school. About 1% of the students that are international do get accepted into medical schools. But again, medical schools American medical schools tend to favor American students that will stay here and work and practice. So how do you take your MCAT and prepare and apply? You end up going through this service called AMCAS, which is a primary application fee service that costs $160 for your first school and $38 for each of your additional schools. So this is kind of the way medical schools receive your application. You're not just applying directly to them. You're applying to this program that then sends out your application. So if you applied to 15 medical schools, it'll cost you close to $700. And then if you talk about interviews and traveling, you're talking about $2,000. Often medical schools require a secondary application. Each one of those can be anywhere from $0 to $150 a piece. So you could talk about spending $5,000, well, even batting an eye when you get to the point of applying to medical schools, and then still not get accepted. So as you can see, it is an onerous task to make it into medical school. So choose a major that you love. It doesn't have to be biology. We love it if it was biology, but pick something that you love, because college should be about what you love, and then take the pre-med biology classes. The typical pre-med biology classes include, your introduction to biology, your organic chemistry, often up to biochemistry, usually math up to calculus 1, and then chemistry, as I mentioned, your chemistry classes up to organic and possibly biochemistry. And then usually you have about 3 or 4 biology classes. Recommend taking anatomy and physiology, for instance. So anyway, those are what you would need typically to get into most programs. You need to really spend your time looking at different medical schools and see what their admission requirements is. There's no reason to apply to a medical school that doesn't match your background as an undergrad. I wouldn't necessarily, unless you're a really hardcore research type student, apply to Harvard, for instance. Apply to schools that you have a realistic chance to get accepted to. Do community service. Don't just be the kid that, or student, young person that decided just to take the classes, get the high GPA, and then I have nothing to show for it. I never did anything for my community, never did any volunteerism. Do well in your classes, it's obvious. Get your hands-on healthcare experience. You'll want to shadow, you'll want to go to hospitals and work as a free volunteer often. It's difficult. You might need to have other bills to pay. Try to get, if you get that 2-year degree, like I told you, become a respiratory therapist, you're going to get a lot of healthcare experience. And then go back to medical and get your bachelor's degree. That's one thing to consider. But no matter what, create a niche for yourself. Make yourself invaluable. So you can see, you can major in just about anything, whether it be biology, chemistry, psychology, public health. People that succeed in the pre-med route, though, take a lot of sciences, no matter what. Take a lot of math. As I mentioned before, pre-med is not a major. It's about 15 different classes that I kind of described, such as chemistry through organic, basic biology classes, and up to stats and stuff like that, math. But choose the major you're most passionate about. A GPA is required to get into your pre-med classes. The GPA has to be high for your pre-med classes. You want A's. B's have needed, but A's and B's, you can't really expect to be successful with a bunch of C's. So again, about choose any major you want. We love it if you stay in biology, but 29% of people that got accepted into Albert Einstein College of Medicine are non-science majors. So you can do it as an English major. Choose your gen eds wisely and strategically. That means pick classes that are going to help you or that you're genuinely interested in. So explore and develop your interests. Pick classes that help you to stand out. Maybe it's take some philosophy classes. Classes that demonstrate you care about humanity. Because a big part of being a medical doctor isn't just the technical part, but demonstrating that you have that human potential to have good bedside manner and care about your patients. And then choose a minor that adds breadth to your academic preparation. Almost all of you are going to have nearly a chemistry minor by the time you take the pre-med classes. Consider that, but also consider other fields as well. This is the biological sciences, medical sciences option. This tells you the classes that you will need to get your medical sciences option at Western Illinois University. So you'll be taking your zoology and botany classes, your chemistry 201 and biology 170, which most of you are in here taking now. And then you'll just continue to progress, taking more of those classes in microbiology, foreign languages, ultimately making it to the top and graduating. So study this page closely. Talk to your biology advisor. Most of you are probably talking to Theodore or Jennifer Sandrick Rubio. Make sure to pick their brains. They have lots of experience in students trying to get into medical school. So again, keep building a niche for yourself. Keep exercising. Don't let academics consume you to the point where you don't exercise a lot. Just try to stay healthy. Try to get your community service. Don't spend a lot of time just doing social media. Focus on bettering yourself. That's the kind of advice I would give my children if they're trying to get ready for medical school. It's easy to let yourself go, like I did a little bit while working on my PhD. I was spending so much time doing my research, trying to get a job that was good and pay my family. But I didn't exercise as often as I should. Now I'm paying for it by exercising now, trying to catch up. Don't let that happen to you. You're out of high school, you're outside of athletics. It gets easy to be preoccupied with just studying. So make sure you're a well-rounded person. Exercise, community service, some type of humanity or art to develop that side of you, and then work your tail off on the sciences. Don't waste a lot of time. If you're going to do something social, that's great, but make sure that you've done your work first. And then do a little bit of volunteer work. Might not be, it doesn't have to be 40 hours a week, but it should be something that's substantial and consistent. One-time volunteering isn't the same as somebody that volunteered twice a month for the 4 years they were at Western. And then also stand out by maybe providing some local programming to area schools and high schools and senior centers. Maybe you can help provide a fitness program or do some cooking or something like that as an after-school activity. So to be competitive in a health professional school, whether it be medical school or physical therapy or whatever, you need to keep all three buckets full. You need to keep your academic rigor high. You need to get knowledge of the field that goes well beyond what I will provide here or what you'll ever get in a university class. That is by shadowing, going to hospitals and shadowing, or nursing centers and shadowing, physical therapy centers and shadowing, getting a job as either as a volunteer or as a paid person at those hospitals. That's going to give you that extra knowledge. And then internet research. All that's critical. So academic rigor, again, is going to be what you learn in the classroom, but it's also going to be about what you brought to the table. You need to learn beyond what the books tell you, beyond what your professors tell you. Don't limit yourself to just what we provide to you. You start studying for that MCAT and learning beyond what you might have gotten in some of your classes. And then make sure you get some community engagement. So share your successes, prepare a thoughtful application, gather strong recommendations, get to know your professors. If you don't get to know them, you're not going to get as strong of a recommendation as you think you want. And then prepare for a great interview. As one of the homework assignments is to do an interview. So I want you to practice giving an interview. Imagine talking in front of a room. So I want you to prepare an interview. So as I mentioned, one does not simply get accepted into medical school. You got to have good grades and an MCAT, campus engagement, community service, patient care by shadowing, strong letters of recommendation, excellent interviewing skills, and then hopefully you get accepted. So what role does your pre-health advisor play? We have, as I mentioned before, advisors in our department. They can be your cheerleader. I'm also a resource to be a cheerleader too. I'm the advisor for the pre-professional health club. And so we as a group try to be supportive. I'm also available to you if you want to come by and talk to me about your efforts to get into medical school. I'll be supportive and honest and objective. So will your advisors, Jennifer Sandrick Rubio and Theodore. You'll be focused on trying to help you to be accepted, but ultimately it's up to you. There's no other way around it. We'll be your champion, your family will be your champion of your cheerleaders, but we'll try to be objective as fast as possible, as much as possible. I've seen lots of people that were pre-med. I've seen lots of people get accepted into medical school as well. And I know what they did to help them stand out. So typically you'll need to have a 3.7 GPA to be very competitive. For DO school, 3.3. Your MCAT score around 508. your MCAT score around 502 for DO school. If you're thinking about dentistry, you'll want to have at least a 3.35, and then they have a dental aptitude test where you want at least a 9 on it. The most common reasons why students with high MCAT scores don't get accepted or high GPAs get accepted is they simply didn't do the volunteer work. They selected schools that were not right for them. If you try to get into Harvard Medical School without having a serious research background, you're probably not going to get accepted. If they didn't apply to enough schools, maybe they only applied for a few schools. You need to consider applying to up to 20 schools. Maybe they needed a gap time to get that extra volunteer work. So there's lots of reasons why a person with a high MCAT score and high GPA might not be accepted. Maybe they just don't come across as very social. You need to understand that medicine is also about the social connection. As I mentioned before, it's very expensive getting to medical school. It could cost you thousands of dollars. Obviously, it's helpful to get that gap year. It's important to get some extraordinary experiences, demonstrate how you overcame hardships, and these things will help you to get accepted into a medical school or a school of your interest. If you don't get a good GPA, go back to school and consider getting more. So you need to answer these questions before you apply. Is my MCAT score competitive? Is it around 500 to 508 or better? Is my GPA 3.5, 3.3, 3.5? You know, you need to really think about that. Are my references strong? I just have bad references. Did I bother to get my clinical experiences going to different hospitals? Did I help with my community service? Did I do some research with a professor and take it seriously? And then the question I ask is, why don't you consider being a physician assistant? Maybe be a dentist. Why not choose another health career where you can get good money right away? Just realize you have lots of ways to have a very fulfilling career with good salaries. Medical doctor is just one of those approaches. A gap year is good to consider. Maybe after you finish 4 years of school, you need that break. Explore, volunteer, travel. I highly recommend it. It'll make your letter of reference stronger. So you get to create the timeline. There's no absolute, I have to do it by a certain amount of time. In fact, students that think they should do it in 3 years, 2 years from being a freshman, often are the weakest medical students I've seen. I've seen 2 medical students, one that didn't finish their bachelor's degree and went into a medical school, because it's still some that you can do that. She failed out. I saw another who almost never attended classes, was really smart. She brought in a lot of credit hours, and she graduated in 2 years, went to medical school and failed out. Take your time to really learn the topics. Don't be in a super rush. Be mature before you leave. I know that that's tough love, and you might not listen to me, but that's what I've seen. Don't be in a hurry. Do it right. This here can tell you about the application deadlines. This is probably not as critical to you at this point, but a lot of people apply early summer for the next year. Take a look at that when you get to that point. I know most of you are not preparing to apply to medical school at this moment. What you need to be focusing on is getting good grades and looking at what it takes to get your MCAT score. And think about that, because that's ultimately 3 years down the road. So again, talk to your advisors often. Stop by your professor's offices often. Read up on the internet, do lots of research often. Talk to healthcare professionals often. I've already kind of hit on what you need to do. For entering into medical school, you'll need to take this MCAT test. I've kind of already hit on that. You can look at that a little bit more. Think about research projects that make you stand out. Brainstorm. Get your hands-on experience, volunteering. Maybe become a phlebotomist where you draw blood from people. Shadow. I'm kind of pushing it along. Maybe work with the American Red Cross, helping bring blood. That's going to really stand out on a resume and stand out on your letter when you try to get into a school. So again, these kind of things will help you to stand out. Get your research in, get your letters of recommendation in, and so forth. Go to more pre-med kind of things than this class as well. Find out what your professors are researching. Get to know us. Get to be part of Western Illinois University. Join the pre-professional health club. There's also a emergency medical EMT program for students on campus where you can help as a first responder. That is incredible experience where you can be a first responder on our campus to help with healthcare issues. Look into that. That is a student-run organization. So not all volunteer experience needs to be healthcare related. Helping students little kids learn how to read. Going to an old folks home, helping them do some type of activity. Those are all things that really matter. And that will still stand out. It doesn't have to be medical research either. I've had multiple students do research with me dealing with molecular biology and insects and plants that then went on to become medical doctors. What matters is that you did quality work. So anyway, all sorts of ways to get community service, whether it be from the Red Cross or whatnot. Write a journal. Keep track of what you did so that when you write your letters, personal statements and letters and CVs and resumes, that you know what you did accurately. So keep a record of it. Now, when you look for information online, realize there's going to be for-profit and non-for-profit. A lot of it can be useful. A lot of it isn't useful. Some of it is about making money for that company. And desperate students wanting to get into medical school will throw lots of money at a company to help them to get into medical school. I'd be very careful selecting that kind of help. Try to go for the free help first. But the most important thing is to start looking at the Association of American Medical Colleges. That'll get you on the right track. Here it is, located here. And this will tell you things that deal with medicine, coronavirus, for instance, how to get a medical school. There's things that matter, because if you become a physician, you will be part of the American Medical Association. And you'll be part of the American Medical Colleges and knowing as a step to get in. So here's things about student research, or excuse me, information on student residencies. So here you can apply for residency. A residency is what you do after medical school. This will tell you how to attend medical school. So here's opportunities to visit various medical schools, applying to medical school. This tells you all the stuff you need to know. You need to look at this website. So study the Association of American Medical Colleges website. I'll tell you about the MCAT. Choosing a medical career, deciding if medicine is for you. So click on all this and it'll tell you, and then take the time to read it. Can you afford medical school? Important. Read this, look at it, study it. So where are we at? So what do you know about the medical profession? So these are things that you need to think about. These are questions that I would like for you to answer. How do you feel about communicating difficult or bad news? How do you deal with ambiguity? These are the type of things that are going to be interview questions for you trying to get into medical school. How do you deal with life and death decisions? You need to think about this before you go down this path. Another option for health career field is, of course, dental school. So we have various medical schools and we have dental school. Dental school is a great career. If things like tooth decay can lead to heart disease. So it's a critical care area. You need to have good manual dexterity. There's about 8 to 10 dental schools to apply to. You got to be strong in your sciences. So most everything I said about medical school applies to dental school. So I hope that you appreciated this presentation. What you need to do next is write a one-page paper demonstrating that you listened to this recording, and that will account for your first lecture credits. You'll be getting additional presentations online. Some of them may be set up as a Zoom meeting. Some of them will be pre-recorded like this one. Each one of them you will have to write a one-page, single-space report. This is going up now for you to do so. Thank you for everything. I hope your semester is going well. Sorry it's a difficult situation with COVID. Take care and have a good day. And good luck pursuing a medical career.